Alright, hello everyone. So we have an applied calculus problem. Suppose a company has a fixed cost of $300 per day. Each item the company manufactures costs 51 cents, $0.51, or to say it that way. And suppose that the company sells each item produced at 5 minus 0.001x, where x is the number of items produced. So we're asked many questions here. I'm going to split up this video into two parts. I'm going to answer the first 4 questions, and in the next video I'm going to answer the last 3 here, because it's a little too much to put in one single video here. So the first question, find C of x, the cost of producing x items daily. Okay, so the way that works is by looking at a formula that we have, which says that the cost of producing x number of items is determined by the fixed cost plus the variable cost. So the fixed cost would include maybe, for example, the rent or electricity or whatnot. Again, I said perhaps, not necessarily depending on the situation. So in our case, the fixed cost, we were told that it was $300. So I'm gonna just replace the fixed cost with 300. And then what we have is the variable cost. So the variable cost is the cost that changes depending on a factor. So when you make some product, it's gonna cost you, each item is gonna cost you some money, right? So the total cost for making that number of, some number of items is given by 0.51x, where x is the number of items here, okay? So that is what our variable cost would be, and total 300 plus 0.51x is going to be our total cost, variable again plus fixed cost. All right, so then we have part B here, which is finding the revenue function, and we were told that each item sells for 5 minus 0.001x. So the revenue is equal to the number of items sold times the sales price per item. So so we're selling whatever, like let's just say t-shirts for a second. If I was selling each t-shirt for $10, let's say, $10, and then I sold 50, I would make 10 times 50 dollars total, because I sold some number of shirts and then I sold them for a price each. So in general, when you're looking at the revenue here of selling X items, it's the number of items sold. So let's just call that X, okay? And the sales price for each item. And that's given by this expression. This is not a fixed value. Like when we think of a sell price, we often think of a fixed number like 4, 3, whatever, dollars, $20. But what we're saying here with this equation is that the 5 minus 0.001x, the sales price of each item depends on the number of items we make. Okay, that's very, very common. And I'm going to simplify this a bit. R of x here is equal to 5x minus 0.001x squared. So I just distributed that x. All right, and then what is the domain for R of x? So a lot of the time this question is actually asked first, but I wanted to ask it later on for a purpose, is that we forget that a lot of these functions have implied domains, even though they might not ask for them. But as I said before, a lot of the time you will be asked for a domain. And what does that mean here? Well, see, the number, if I want a revenue, I want to know how much money I make selling items here, and I don't want that amount to be negative. So if you take that equation, R of x equals x 5 minus 0.001x. As I said, I want this not to be negative. I want it to be positive. And what can affect it? Well, this part right here and this part right here. And x is the number of items sold. So first thing I'm going to be looking at here is this. Well, x has to be greater than or equal to 0. Okay, right, because x is the number of items. I don't deal with negative items here. I can technically have 0 items sold, and that's fine. And what other thing is important here? Well, this expression needs to be positive as well, right? Because this was right here, this was the price per item. And the price per item needs to be positive. essentially what I'm going to do here is this. I'm going to go ahead and take this expression and say it has to be greater than or equal to 0. Okay. So technically it can be 0. And if you were to solve this inequality, I'm going to move the 0.001x over, and then I'm going to divide by 0.001 on both sides. You get that 5 divided by 0.01 is about 5,000. Okay? So 5,000 is bigger than x, and x is greater than or equal to 0. Or another way of saying this is that x is less than 5,000. Yeah, if 5,000 is bigger than x, it's the same thing as saying x is less than 5,000. And 0 is less than or equal to x is the same thing as saying x greater than or equal to 0. So this is my quote-unquote implied domain in this problem. And so typically all these problems will have a domain. And last here, for this video, I'm going to ask to find the profit here. Okay? Profit is actually quite simple if you know the revenue and the cost. So profit is equal to revenue minus cost. So profit is basically the amount of money you have left after you sold your items and you take the cost into consideration. So R of x here is going to be the 5x minus 0.01x squared .001x squared, excuse me. And then my cost, as I said, it was 300 plus 0.51x. So total, this is going to be 5x minus 0.01x squared minus 300 minus 0.51x. And if we went ahead and added like terms, meaning the x's here, the 5x and the 0.51x, that makes that a 4.49x minus 0.01x squared minus 300. Or if you prefer, it with the positive value first, sorry, not the positive, and then like increasing terms, it'd be minus 300 plus 4.49x minus 0.01x squared. Okay, so that is what your profit would be. So our next video will tackle the rest of the questions, which will require some calculus. Thanks for watching. Hope this helps.